What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Effing Terrible podcast. I am always as effing terrible. This one might be a hot one. Uh, Today, we have a very special guest for a very special event that's been taking place in USA hockey and in the Midwest. Today, I get to welcome probably I would say, our most esteemed guest. Just going through your profile here, sir, I have Mr. Mike Butters. Welcome to the show, sir.
My dad is Mr. Butters, I'll have you know. But thanks, man. It's effing great to be on the effing podcast.
No, we're glad to have you. I wish it was under. I guess it was wish. I wish it was under a better circumstance just to go ahead and fire into. I mean, I'm sure your huge background. So before we dig into what the story of the week has been, which is the USA hockey rule, which is why I contacted you. I think first of all, I don't want to just sit here and spend our time going through your elite prospects background and going through all the details I found on you. So if you wanted to give us the highlights of exactly who you are, because I mean, it's pretty extensive here,
Man.
sir.
I don't know. I've been around the block. Let's just say that. I've done a little bit in hockey and I've been around. I've worked for different organizations at pretty much every level. So I'm not, I can talk till the cows come home, but I really don't like talking about myself a whole lot. So I don't say no a lot, or I haven't said no a lot in the past. I've worked for a lot of teams at every level, from the NHL all the way down to even youth hockey and everything in between. Commissioner, GM, assistant GM. I've owned teams, junior teams, etc. But I've been on the USA Junior Council for over a decade, or I was on the council. But now I'm spending a little time as an ombudsman for the game, helping families sort out issues like the rule we're going to talk about tonight.
And I think that was the one that I really enjoyed when we did get to talk the other day. Is the role that you were talking about when you go into some of these organizations. Can you break down, again, before we jump into the rule that we're talking about, can you break down what you were talking about when you go into these organizations and how you evaluate and what you bring to the table when you do that? Let's say I run a hockey organization and you come into my organization, and what exactly is it that you did? Because you kind of gave me an idea of like the breakdowns and how you look at different things, and I thought that was very interesting. So if you can explain how that works.
Well, it all depends on the level of hockey that I'm asked to help. You know, I get calls from everything from I've audited National Hockey League organizations before. I've audited junior hockey outfits and youth hockey organizations. So it all depends on the level, but essentially go in, see how things operate, and if there's any dysfunction there, well, great. Sometimes it's on the economic side. More times than not, I'm brought in on the hockey side to to clean things up. I've always just once I want to work for a team that has unlimited resources and everything's running smoothly. I usually have to come in and fix things and be a part of a team that does that. But the process is different for every single operation. You know, like I've gone into youth hockey groups before where maybe there's an over exuberant president and they want to run it with an iron fist, and you know it's got to be, he might have to go. I've been in other situations where it's been complete socialism and nothing ever gets done because there's a board and they vote on everything and no one can agree on anything. So they need someone to go in and actually be a decision maker. I dealt with that a lot as a commissioner in the junior leagues. And so, you know, it's just trying to get to know the operation, how it works, and see how you can better optimize it for the families. Because at the end of the day, especially at youth hockey, it's for the kids, right? We just get in the way. I mean, all we should be for these kids is someone to support them and maybe someone to write checks, and maybe both, right? But it's about them and their development, and it's such an overused word in the game, development. Guys that have been in the game a long time almost cringe when people bring it up because they overuse it. They use it like a selling point, but it's such an important thing because so few players make it to the National Hockey League. You know, I'll tell you a quick story. I mean, when I first got hired by Tampa Bay, you know, I owned a rink in Montana, and I had nothing to do with youth hockey, but I owned a rink. I owned a junior team as a part owner, and during that time, nobody wanted to listen to me. I didn't know anything about anything. Same guy, 24 hours later, gets hired by the Tampa Bay Lightning to work in their scouting department, and all of a sudden, everyone wants to know if their 9-year-old has what it takes to make it to the NHL. You know, like my opinion was mud the day before, and all of a sudden I'm a genius because I just got a title at the end of my name. And there's a lot of good people. My point is, there's a lot of good people at the youth level that have spent decades in the game and are very quality oriented people, and they just don't. They get run over by people that come into the game new and they want to change everything. Sometimes things don't need to be changed. Sometimes everything needs to be changed. You need to blow something up. And so that's essentially what I do. There's a little more nuances at the junior level and even more so at the pro level. They're easier fixes, believe it or not, because you've got, it's mostly about money, and the NHL, it's just about winning. I mean, every team gets together every year and all they do is try and win the Stanley Cup. And if you're not in the NHL and you're not working for an NHL team, then your job is to move the players up till they get to that level. That's your priority at every level, whether it's 5U, mites, or WEPs, or whatever they call them now, all the way up to junior A and major junior. Your job is to elevate the players and at the right time. And I'm jumping all over the place, but there's good and bad to that too. There's times when players shouldn't be elevated, and there's times that maybe players are held back too long. But your goal in hockey, or our goal as non-players in the game now, aside from beer league, is to elevate these players and just give them the best experience we can.
Absolutely. And that is, obviously your aspect there, and you're looking into it the way that you work and the things that you've seen leads into the reason why I wanted to ask you this question. So for the background, and I would assume there's a whole bunch of people that I know that'll be listening to this just because they know this podcast is coming out to talk about this. And what came out, the email that I have that I'm looking at here, did come out July 2nd. And that email was, as far as, I'm not sure where it hit on the East Coast or the West Coast. I'm hearing there may be some different time frames, but in the Midwest, we were explained, and this information on July 2nd, that for the two states that it affects the most for me, which would be Indiana and Illinois, USA Hockey has ruled that Tier 2 and Tier 3, a recreational hockey residency rule, will now be implemented for the 26-27 season. Real quick, so that I'm not reading emails, that basically says you live in Illinois and play in Indiana, you're going back to Illinois. If you live in Indiana and you play in Illinois, you're going back to India. They're going to kick everybody back. Now, this email comes out. There's no real, at least for us, an access. I mean, everyone started to scatter. But immediately, all of these people that played here started putting in their waivers, because it says on here that if you feel like you're going to be affected, contact the director and put in a waiver. I am not in a position of authority. I have an effing terrible podcast, and my phone was going nuts this weekend with families finding out that no one was being approved. And again, when I use a broad brush like no one, I'm not going to say that not a single person in the country was approved. I'm saying a large portion of very obvious approval situations were not approved. And then it turned into, from our vantage point, on the individual level, maybe a little bit of a, people digging some heels in. So before we even go into what actually came to happen, because it does sound like there have been some approvals and there's been a little bit of cooling heads and maybe a little backpedaling. And then also we did receive an email from one of the Mid-Am guys today saying that they're going to allow families to be grandfathered in. If they've already been gone for over a year, you can stay gone. So if you've been there, you've been gone over a year, you can stay. That came out, I guess, late Sunday or early Monday. So before we go into all the details, as far as the residency rule, how do you feel as someone who obviously has more knowledge than my, almost 2 full years in youth hockey now? Where do you come off with how you feel about not how it was implemented, but just the rule at its base, just the very bottom of where it starts, the start of it?
Well, Um, the rule in itself, and I've having served USA Hockey for over a decade on their various committees, I got to see the genesis of some programs, including the ADM, and when it comes to rule generation and rule changes, very rarely do you see where a rule is just changed instantly. It's something that has been given a lot of thought. That doesn't mean it's a good idea, but they do put a lot of thought into this. Sometimes there are good rules and some good people involved that you trust and you respect their opinion, right or wrong. There's other times where there's people, quite frankly, that shouldn't be, they should be pushing pencils at USA Hockey and not making hockey decisions. And that's just the reality of it. And it's like that with every business, right? But when it came down to this rule, and whenever they release a new rule, and I know you're talking about in your ecosphere, this rule is a big deal. The big deal right now going on is the rule changes at the college level and the major junior being allowed. But this, hey, I know you coach, you're a dad to an 8U. This is a big deal because it affects you. So it's as important, or actually more important right now. On the front end of it, the intent, and as a commissioner, I used to have to settle disputes and this stuff all the time. And I always would look at the intent of something before I would chime in on it, right? What is the intent of the rule? And the intent of the rule, as I understand it, is to keep players or try to minimize cost for families and players after the AAA level. For whatever reason, they still think that players need to go far distances to play AAA. We can talk about that in a minute. But as far as the AA and single A players, they don't feel that it's important enough for them to have to leave the state to further their hockey career. Now, I've also seen this. For every rule that's ever existed, I've written bylaws from scratch for leagues and started from scratch and wrote a rule book. And for every rule, there's an exception. Now, I will tell you on the front end of it, and they call me the Russian judge wherever I am, because I'm just going to tell you how it is, not how it is, how I feel it is. I like the rule. I do like the rule, and there's probably a lot of parents that are playing, their kids have to play in other states, or they got denied their waiver, and that's unfortunate, and I'll get to that in a second. But I do like the rule on the front end of it, because really, if you have something in your home base or you don't have it in your home base, in your home association, if you're getting horrible coaching and it's maybe a bad rink owner or a bad program, yes, there's exceptions to every rule. You got to leave, right? But you got to put a concentrated effort into making your home base the best it can be. And if you can't do that, then I see, and there's exceptions to every rule. I know where you guys are located, right in Indiana. You're right on the Illinois border. And there's got to be some common sense in there too. You can't just draw a hard line and say, well, if you're in this state, you got to stay in this state when, I don't know how far you are from Illinois and your next rink in Indiana. But if it's closer to the state, you being out of state, it's 10 minutes, let's say 20 minutes, whatever it is. And the next one's 2 hours away. Well, that's a reasonable consideration, because if the intent of the rule is to save money and to have parents, not have to expunge all this money, then you're breaking the intent of the rule just by proxy there. So, I'm of the strong belief that players should stay home as long as they can. I mean, another program that USA Hockey is launching for the AAA level is the NDL, and they're creating AAA teams that are going to play regionalized games similar to what you see in Canada. Now I get it. There's more players in a condensed area in different areas of Canada. But, look in Washington State, where I am here in Seattle. I mean, we've got AAA hockey here in Seattle, and these guys play in a league where they're traveling to Minneapolis every other weekend, and they're going all across the Midwest and out east and stuff. When I coached AAA in Seattle, we played in the East Coast Elite League. We used to have to hop on planes every other week or every 3 weeks and go to Boston and play. When there's a league an hour and a half north of us in Canada that has all the AAA hockey we can handle. So common sense just was thrown out the window there. And
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
no, it kind of happens regularly. Like, you notice nowadays, like well, common sense isn't really applied. We didn't think about that when we did 90% of the things going on. But I wasn't interrupting. I was saying, yeah, that's just kind of how it goes now. Common sense, it's not that common.
No, no. And so, the rule is simple. I mean, it's one of the few rules that you can read and understand in 2 minutes. It's actually a simple rule. So it's easy to argue on both sides of the rule because it is simple. But as we've exposed, there are some exceptions to those rules. And where this gets tough is you've got USA Hockey that is the national governing body, but then USA Hockey has all of their state affiliates. And I will tell you, there are some really good people that are state affiliates, and there's some really knuckleheads that just belong to an association. So all of their decision making and all of their arbitrary rulings benefit that association, right? I don't have skin in the game. I've never been on a board of an association. I never will be because of that. I've seen it happen in all the states that I've lived in over the years, where these people have special interests and they don't do what's best for the overall good. They do what's best for their association. I'm seeing that in Washington State right now. Every association in Seattle owns their own rink. So just think about that for a second. They all own their own rinks. So if you want to bring in a special guest camp instructor, or if you have a good private coach from one that lives in another part of town that wants to teach at that rink, I went to another association. I had a player, one of my good buddies from Winnipeg, his son played in the USHL. And he used to come to me every summer and we would train. I would train him and I would teach him how to shoot mostly and all that stuff. Anyways, I go to this association that I'm not a part of it. I'm just a guy, right? 6 a.m, it's the only place we can get ice. It's the closest place we can get ice. 6 a.m, there's no one out there. Some jackhole, because he knows that I coach in another association, says, you got to get off the ice. And the program director comes over and he goes, man, I'm really sorry. We can't. I go, listen, this kid's going to probably play in the National Hockey League, which he is on his way. He's in the American League right now, and he will be an NHLer. Do you want to be a part of that? If he ever comes back to your rink again. Turns out that particular city had a Western League team. They drafted him, and it left a bitter taste in his mouth, and he ended up going the college route instead. So,
well, good.
This is just a prime example on how it applies to you guys, right? You've got, depending on how whoever's arbitrating this stuff for you at the state level, I mean, you've got some legitimate gripes about, traveling. But again, I would say, I don't know if you want to dissect your association, but I don't know if it's good, bad, and different. But if everything there is running smoothly, you have good coaching there, you have a lot of ice time, all your infrastructure is built, there aren't any missing gaps in it, then I would strongly suggest that all the players in that region stay at home and play. Now, if they don't, and they're not getting enough ice time, they're not getting quality coaching, and you don't feel that you're getting, your money's worth, then you should be able to look at options, and that being the closest opportunities to you. Now, if it happens to be in another state, so be it. This isn't gulag. This isn't, communist China. Like, you can go where you want. So there has to be a fine line, and that's the biggest difference between USA Hockey and Hockey Canada is that. I mean, and we have something.
Now that's the thing is now they're saying you can't. And I guess, again, I won't go delving into any individual organization. A very good friend of mine who introduced me to you reminded me on the phone yesterday that my son is at the very beginning of his career.
That's right.
So, and the internet is forever. So I will be diplomatic at best. I told him I would do that. But just for an example, in this, what you're saying, I totally understand and I totally get it. And I think there's a lot of validity to it. But when I hear from parents, and again, putting all my cards on the table, this rule has no effect on me. Did not affect where my son will play, doesn't have effect on, it did not have a direct effect to his career.
Okay.
But we've been around for just a short period of time. And because of our platform, we've come across lots of families, and they reached out to us from all over the place, from Indiana, from Illinois, some Michigan families that we've talked to. And the questions that they run into is, okay, they're trying to say they don't want you to have to travel. It's a, I get what you're saying. It's a to try and help with the cost of it and the travel. But then there's a parent that's going to be out there. And again, this is just devil's advocate saying, it's my kid, it's my money. I'm clearly picking to leave for a reason. Now, the funny thing is I know that there's multiple reasons. You may not like the coaching. You may not like the leadership. You may not like the rink and the way the bathroom smells. You may have a kid who you think is about to be an all-star, about to be an NHL all-star, and he's really not that guy. And every time he gets put on a second team or a third line, you keep switching teams. And that's another thing that I've heard people say they're trying to avoid, where they're just team jumping because they think their kid's going to be someone that he's not. But when it comes down to it, as you said, like, it's not the gulag, it is USA Hockey, and they should have some say in where their kid goes. And for example, if there's an organization that is just bleeding families gone, and if they're just leaving at a rapid pace, then at that point it should be, okay, we have X amount of waivers from X team, this team. Why do we have so many waivers from that team? Why are so many people running away from it? So that would be the other side of the coin that we hear a lot of.
It is, but that's where guys like me come in and go into an organization, audit it, dissect it, and try to help the group, whatever, fix it. And more times than not, in my experience, it's always been either a rink owner who doesn't get it, or it's been, and I can say that I've owned rinks, so I know what it's like. It's hard. It's a hard business, but it's either that or it's usually the board or president or key people in those organizations who just aren't making decisions that are in the best interest of their most youth hockey organizations are run by the parents of house kids. And I dealt with it at the association I was coaching at. I'm coaching the highest level of AAA hockey at the oldest level, which I have my own views on AAA hockey and when that should start. But anyways, it was 16U, and these guys, it's the last time at 16U. It's where there is no cloudiness. The kids don't have junior. When you're 16 years old or 17, now you've got junior hockey, college hockey, club hockey, juvenile hockey, and youth hockey still. They got 18U. It's ridiculous. So everything is all saturated. The last time you play high-level hockey is 16, 15U, where all of the best kids, or 99% of them, are playing, right? There's no crossover there, aside from an age or two. But back to what I was saying. So these boards, they make these bad decisions, and the parents, sadly, the wrong parents are involved. They want to get involved because their kid loves the game, then they get into it, and maybe their kid's not as good as they think he is. Who cares? The kid's having fun. But they want to control things, and they only see it from the eyes of their kid. And there are associations that makes these wackadoo rules, like coaching. Okay, so I started a girls program, a female program out here in Washington State. There was one existing. There were a lot of girls that just didn't really care for that association. They want to start one. So we were looking for coaches. I ended up coaching for a few years and my daughter played, and that's why I got in. But they said, well, we have a rule that, we can't have a parent coach. I said, you find a better coach, I'm all for it. I don't want to coach, right? I want to be a dad. But and if you do enforce it, then I'm just going to send it over to the other association, because I have a theory, and it's part of my group and my advisory group, and what I do now for majority of my living is we consult with families, we help them, and it all comes down to this: you play for a program, and you play for an organization, or you play for a coach that believes in you over all else. It doesn't matter if you got a hot tub in the bus and you got fancy this and that and a great rink. If you don't have a coach that believes in you, you're not going to progress in the game, and you're not going to enjoy it. So I think coaches at this level, a lot of times, the highest level guys that played the highest level of hockey typically know the game a little more. Yeah, right? They should be coaching the youngest levels. They should be doing learn to play and those kind of things. They usually you get lucky. Sometimes you get an ex-pro in your town, and he'll work with his kid while he's coming up. So everybody else, and I will tell you, Now, there's an exception to every rule, like I said, but most guys that played professional hockey at I'll even say the East Coast level or higher, high level, respectable pro hockey. Not that the other isn't, but high level hockey. Those guys, when they become coaches, um, they get it. It's not about winning. It's not about what the score was last weekend at the tournament. It's like making sure the kids had fun and they come back next week and they want to be on the ice. And that doesn't mean they don't work hard. That doesn't mean you don't work on skills and that kind of stuff. You do, right? But the emphasis is not on winning. It's never from the coaching standpoint. And, like when I get together and I listen to parents, I do a lot of showcase lectures during the summer. And I listen to these parents and they're talking about these tournaments in the summer and the scores and the reffing and the offsides and all this stuff. And I'm like, none of that matters. Like, really, if you really think your kid's going to progress and all that kind of stuff, and some scouts I know, I was a pro scout for years. You think I'm going to go up and ask them what their score was in their summer, 12U Pee Wee tournament in July in, I don't know, wherever, Waukesha, like they don't care. They don't care. They just want to see, and there's a lot of fallacies in that, and we can dive into that too. A lot of guys think that you go the scouts. I was a National Hockey League scout for years. You go in and scout teams, and you're looking. Well, that's a really good team. I could give a rat's ass. I don't care if the team wins or not. I'm going to look at players, and a lot of times you go to look at a player and you see other players. Like everyone says, well, why would you go there? They got Stamkos when we were tracking Stamkos. We drafted him first overall. You're on the ice with Stamkos. Well, there's 29 other guys. There's 39 other guys that are on the ice that have an opportunity to audition for scouts that they never would have had Steven Stamkos not been on the ice as a junior, right? People lose sight of that. But I digress. Nobody gets scouted in the NHL when they're 11 and 12 years old anyway. So everyone has to take a breath. And that's like, the whole essence of this double A thing. It's double A. I'm not crapping on it. I'm not saying it's bad. I played double A. Actually, as an 11U, when they had triple A and quadruple A and all-star teams, I played house. I got cut from tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and I played house as an 11-year-old. And I was the captain of my team. I handled the puck more than I ever would have anywhere else. And the next year I moved up, and the next year I moved up. By the time I was 14, I was in the Western Hockey League. Like it can happen for you if you stay with it. Like, again, you don't sign NHL contracts when you're 11. So when you're playing double A, yeah, okay, maybe, I hate the word politics, but maybe your kid got overlooked for triple A. Maybe he did. Maybe he was the last cut, whatever that is. He gets an opportunity to go play at a lower level and dominate at that level. And a lot of parents think, well, my kid's good and he dominates. Okay, does he dominate? Does he score 5 to 10 points every game at his youth level game? 5 to 10 points when no one else is everyone's getting 1 or half of 1 or, whatever. Is he scoring 5 to 10 a game, every game, all the time? If he is, then maybe look at moving him up. If he's not, then he's gaining all the tools he needs, and then some. So when he does play against tougher players, he's getting more ice time. He's getting quality minutes. He's learning the IQ of the game, which is the number one thing that, I had 5 or 6 different GMs in my time as a scout or an assistant GM or whatever I was, right? And now IQ was number one on all but one of the list. The other one was skating. But all of the rest of them, the number one attribute we look for in players, and that slides down from the National Hockey League all the way down to youth, is you look for kids that can think the game. You can teach a kid to skate. You can teach them how to shoot. It's harder to teach them how to think the game and the nuances of the game, right? And so anyways, I go off topic a little bit here, but back to the whole point of this rule and all that stuff is, if parents take all of that into consideration, going, geez, maybe I should just sit back, take a breath, and yeah, the coach is not a bad guy, or he's a good guy, or you know what? I know a guy. I know a guy who used to play, junior or college. Maybe I can get him to coach, and maybe I can get more volunteers, and maybe this guy's being a real asshat that runs the association. Maybe I'll get a group together and I'll confront him in a nice way and get him to maybe see it from our side. There's all kinds of different ways to fix things before you need to leave home. Because coming from someone who left home at 14, not that I would change anything, because it helped me. But I had kids. I mean, I had a daughter that played. Both my daughters played high level sport. Both played NC2A college. One hockey, one beach volleyball. My daughter wanted to leave home at 12 to go to an academy, and I was like, no way. I think I kept her home a year, maybe longer than she should have, because all of the better players started leaving, and she was left kind of holding the bag with her team. But she was the captain; she got to play a lot. Those kind of things happen, and so because I'll tell you, moms that are listening to this thing, I hope they are. Something that effing in the podcast is pretty funny. Moms, when they leave, they don't come back. I'm telling you right now. In junior hockey, we do not recruit dads. We don't recruit players. We recruit moms, because if mom's good with letting him go away from home, we know he's in good hands. He ain't coming home. Whether you want him to or not, he's got that taste of independence. So enjoy that time with him as long as you can.
Absolutely. And I guess for us in the situation that we're looking at, and just the overall USA Hockey thing, I think on its face and the root of the rule, I guess I understand what their attempts are. And there's people above all of us, like yourself and other people that are in the top of it, that are with the best of intentions for the game and for the people. But the problem is when you run down into the individual levels, which is obviously where we see it. Now you have the aspect of seeing it from the higher ups, where we get to see it on the base level. And the biggest concern, I think, is especially when you have these teams that, and I know that's all not supposed to be about winning or losing, but the bottom line is some of these teams, especially when you talk about crossing borders, do not like each other. They steal each other's kids. They do it on purpose. They'll take a kid on their team because they know they're taking him from an organization that they don't like. And now you're putting them in positions where it sounded like, again, not factual, no 100% guarantee, but it sounded like one person rejected a waiver, and then the other state rejected a waiver too, and then like, well, we're not going to approve any if you're not going to approve any, and it turned into a big pissing match.
Oh yeah,
which is how it seemed. Which is the thing is I'm sure over the time that you've been involved with sports, hockey, or just adult men or women for that matter, you get pissed off and you dig your heels in, and all of a sudden the whole world's on fire. You burn the bridge you're standing on to prove a point. And I think for USA Hockey, which I have no doubt in my mind that when they put this rule down, they weren't like, let's see how bad we can fuck up these people's weekends. Like that wasn't their goal. Like I know that for a fact. And there's a lot of things like lofty goals about what they were trying to do. And I can see the idea of spreading out talent and making sure there's not like one state that's really good at hockey and then the state next to it's dog shit. It's better for the sport to have good talent scattered all over the country in every single state. But again, in my mind, that's almost a utopian idea. And that's if everyone does everything the right way, if there's no jagoff directors, if there's no bad rink owners, if there's no guys out there stealing the best kids so their teams can go undefeated and they can go, hey, my AAA kid just won a AAA championship. Look at my AAA jacket. And like, that there's guys out there like that. There's guys that are pushing their kids to play for any damn AAA team they can so they can tell the guys at work in the cubicle next to them, my kid's a AAA hockey player. And that's just the downside of it. I mean, I would love the idea, and I'll be the first to admit, I've heard you and the guy that introduced me, everyone here's I drop his name all the time, Steve Cromie. We talk about the outcomes and that it doesn't matter. And I totally get it. And then I'll be the first dad to be devastated when my kid doesn't win a game. It hurts. I hate it for the kid. So like, but again, now I'm learning. I think I'm very fortunate because of what I have in front of me, these assets. I get to interact with guys like you and guys like Steve Cromie, guys like kids. Don't want to call him a kid, but kids like Colin Cromie, who've been down the road not that long ago, very fresh in their minds. So I get to hear a lot of the different things. And I'll be the first to admit, even altered the way I've altered the way I watch my son's games just from the first time I ever watched my son's game with Steve Cromie. He just pointed a few things out that made a lot of sense to me, and I kind of clicked. And I'm one of those make it make sense kind of guys, and then I'll understand it. So, and it did. But the thing is again, I'm going off topic. I know USA Hockey is out there making rules to say if they can find a best way to grow the sport at every single level. But just like anything else, you have to put it into practice, and it has to be put into practice the right way for it to succeed. And we do not live in that perfect little bubble where it just works because people have the knowledge like you have, and it's not just some guy pulling strings. So I do get that the intention is good, but I think, like I said, it's going to take a lot of people getting in lockstep for it to come out the way they wanted it to come out.
Well, that's why they have waivers. Again, that's why all of these things at USA Hockey, there's a waiver. If you you can't, there isn't an organization in the U.S., maybe Major League Baseball being the only one, because of the antitrust laws in the U.S. If you really don't like the rule, you can sue. Like, I'm just going to say it. You can. It'd be kind of wackadoodle, but you can. You have that
Before
option.
you finish the wackadoodle, just so you know, I think, and I told you, my first text message or email came in at 11 on Saturday, and by 2:15 in the afternoon, I had already two emails showing me the lawsuits and the paperwork coming from law firms already.
Yeah, you know, so, but it's, you're right.
And the thing is, that's the problem is we aren't, and when I say we, I mean not me specifically, but maybe I do mean me specifically, but us as society, we are officially at a point where you go, hey, you can't take your kid to play there. Not, maybe 60-70% of the country goes, oh, you want to fucking bet? I bet you I can, because I will back you down. I don't care who you are. And I go, this is not me throwing the rule back at USA Hockey, and this isn't me dumping on parents. This is just kind of the way that I see it, that you're always, if you're going to make a rule like this in a sport like this that encompasses the amount of kids and families that this covers, you have to know there is going to be an unbelievable amount of wackadoos that will come out of the woodwork to throw a wrench in this. They will find a way to fuck it up. And like that seems to be what's going on. And whether it's the parents or people that are denying waivers out of spite or whatever, and I'm not saying that I've seen that. Not saying I've seen that. I'm just saying there's always going to be a monkey wrench in there, which again, at the same time, is that USA Hockey's fault? Should they never change a rule because people are idiots? No, you can't do that either.
Well, at the end of the day, who cares? Like, really, who cares? Like, and if I had a kid that was affected by the rule, I'd say the same thing. You know what? He's got a really good coach where he's at, and he's getting enough ice, and they got an off-ice program, and you know what? Yeah, maybe they don't have exercise bikes, but I got one, or I'll buy him one, or I can take him to the gym, or maybe he's doing that, whatever it is, right? But at the end of the day, who friggin' cares? The right people don't care, because all you care about is that your kid's getting good coaching and he's getting on the ice every week. And like, I know a guy who actually took his kid to Shattuck St. Mary's as I want to say 15 or 16-year-old, because he lived in LA, and he was spending more time in his car with his kid doing homework, like on the way to and from hockey. He spent more time with the kid when he went to Shattuck's, flying in for the weekend and seeing him, right, than he did because the kid spent entire, in traffic trying to because they didn't have enough ice time and stuff like this. And this was high-level AAA hockey. And yes, it does matter. If it is AAA, yeah, you do get certain extensions. If they had a rule like that, so if you want, my dad used to have this saying, I'd come home whining and crying about ice time or losing or whatever, and he'd say, you know what? If you're one of the top 10 kids, you got nothing to cry about, and it makes sense. I mean, I got that tough love when I was a kid. Most guys did.
Oh yeah,
right. And that's fine. Like, it's like, you're in Indiana, so I'm going to tell you. Like, I tell, when I do lectures in the summer, I talk about Bobby Knight a lot. I talk about coaching and Bobby Knight and different coaches that I look up to and that I want to learn from. He was one of them. So was Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, like basketball guys, surprisingly. John Wooden, another one, right? But if you look at Bobby Knight and Mike Krzyzewski, who's the harder guy on his players? Well, everyone's going to go, oh, Bobby Knight, like he threw a chair on the ice. Wrong. Krzyzewski. The only difference is in practice at Duke, those doors are closed. And and nobody sees it. But he was an absolute, and I'm not saying he was bad. I'm just saying he was very tough on his players, and that's a good thing. If I had a son or daughter that played basketball and they had a chance to play for either one of those two, absolutely. But I wouldn't say Bobby Knight because he's a hothead. Who cares? Because again, those are some of the things that the media gets a hold of. And I just actually wrote a blog article on the stuff that matters and how parents, you can utilize your network of parents. Parents get together and they all start chatting and everything gets blown up, but parent circles can be good things too if you're in the right group of parents and you're actually trying to extract information. You're trying to get that stuff out. So the game itself loses because parents are losing track. Like this rule, if you look at this rule in the front end and say, well, okay, my kid used to play out of town or he played out of state and he's grandfathered in. Who cares? Great. He benefits. Okay. My kid played a year away and now they're making him come home. You know what? We already established ourselves as a year away. I think it makes sense because we're only 45 minutes to an hour from this rink and the next one in state's 3 hours away. It makes sense. So who cares? Right? Oh, part 3, look, my kid isn't a AAA player yet and he should stay home and spend more time. Like, it's like these kids that play all-star hockey summer and all this kind of stuff, right? It's like if you take the money that you spend all summer going to these tournaments and all of this stuff, and you take a tenth of it and you stay home and you get them a trainer or a private coach or, I won't even say private coach. There should be a study. I was an analytics guy too. I was one of the guys who started the analytics stuff in Tampa. And I wish there was an analytic to figure out on youth players, how many players got private coaches and how many of them actually made it. Because it always seems to me that the ones that have private coaches are the worst players. And they think that and don't get me wrong, coaching is a great thing. But they think that the private coach is going to get them better. And they're not. Some of these guys, I say 10% of the private coaches are very good. The other 10% have you on the drip. They give you enough. Like, I can't stand doing private lessons because of what the parents expect out of it. I'm going to give the player the tools, and I might be with him for an hour or two for two, 3 sessions, right? And then I'm going to turn him off on his own. I'll see you in 6 weeks. Send me some videos, but I'm going to give you some stuff to do. And the great thing about today is video doesn't lie. So now I can go on to Live Barn, and I know that some of the kids that I teach he's going to be on Live Barn at 4:30 over at OVA or wherever it is. I'll pop on. I have an account. Part of my deal is wherever I go and coach, they got to buy me a Live Barn subscription because I like to snoop and spy, right? It's like, I don't watch a lot of games. I was a scout for most of my life. I watch practices. I actually video review my junior guys. I coached junior A the last 3 years, right? These guys are going right to college. I would actually break down the practices, not the game. Yeah, I break down the games too. That's all part of it. But I would watch the practice. I go, look at this guy. Holy smokes, kid, you're dogging it today. Like, what, you don't like it here? You don't want to be here? Because you can't practice like here and expect to play here. You got to practice here. And I've had a lot of success as a coach. And it comes down to that simple theory. I'm old now, so it doesn't matter. I can give away some of my secrets.
As we sit here, and I do want to go on to some other things, but before we finish up our, I don't want to word it this way because I hope it doesn't come off that way. But the USA Hockey bashing, you made a comment about it at the beginning of the podcast. USA Hockey is making some other major changes and all across the sport. So, and again, one of the reasons we started this podcast and one of the things that I want to do, especially as, again, it's where I'm at right now. I'm learning the ins and outs of youth hockey. It's an association. It's a group that I'd never played. I didn't play youth hockey. And even if I did, it wouldn't have been like this. It's a completely different level now. So as I'm using the things that I come across, the people I meet, to get more knowledge out about the best ways to have your kids navigate youth hockey, the best things you can do, the different avenues. Again, I always keep going back to the ones that I have, but like, if you look at the road that Steve Cromie's son Colin has taken in his travel, it's maybe not the most orthodox. Maybe there is no such thing as the most orthodox way that you would take it. It's just, there's really no set way. So as we talk about that, I think most people may not even know what's going on with USA Hockey's changes as it goes up to the different levels. So if you can give us like a quick breakdown of exactly the layperson's term of it and how you feel about it, I would love to hear your version of it.
So the biggest rule change that's probably come around easily in the last 20 years has to do with eligibility for college hockey.
That was the one I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, and so most sports are very linear, right? Hockey's a very unique sport in that it's not linear. The path to the NHL is not very linear. Whereas in football, baseball, basketball, kids play high school, they play college, they play pro, right? Boop, boop, boop. The ladder goes straight up. In hockey, it's different. You get to Bantam, and then in Bantam, you can go to prep school, maybe you play high school, you play club hockey, you can play AAA, then you either go to juniors, you continue with prep school, then you go to college, or you go to major junior, and major junior players aren't eligible for college. Why? Because they get $50 a month, in salary, and they consider them professionals, and all of a sudden, so anyways, and it wasn't USA Hockey that changed this rule, but it affected USA Hockey, is the NC2A came out this summer, and they've been talking about it for 5 years, and it finally came to fruition, is that major junior players, and by major junior, the major junior is considered the Western Hockey League, the Ontario Hockey League, and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, right? That's considered major junior in Canada, and they have some US teams as well. It's where most of the players, in fact, there's only been a handful in the USHL. They get drafted and go straight into the NHL. Not to say the USA. The USHL prior to this was the #1 college placement league in the world. Guys, you want to play college? 95% of the players playing the USHL went to college on scholarship, Division I, okay? It's a legit number. Then you go down to Tier 2, and you got BC Hockey and North American Hockey League, and those numbers drop substantially. They're around 25 to 30%. Still significant, right? And then you've got the other leagues. They drop down from there. Now, major junior players are eligible for college. And they have something which, in other sports called the NIL, where college athletes can receive payments for name, image, and likeness. My daughter was a recipient of that playing beach volleyball. I know all about it, right? And so now you've got guys like Gavin McKenna. It was reported that Gavin, he left Medicine Hat in major junior to go to Penn State. And it was reported he was making $400,000 a year. The total package was worth $800,000. Well, he's only there for a year, so now he's, he may make an NHL lineup. But you've got roughly 24 teams at those levels, roughly 75 teams of players that are now eligible for college hockey. So how many players is that? 75, 20 to 1,500 players, let's just say, for round numbers, right? That drops everybody down. So everyone that could have played college before, maybe they're playing D3 college, maybe they're playing club college. How does that affect your kid who's 8 years old or 10 years old? Is they've got to start strategizing their plan if Division I college hockey is in their cards, and the pathway to Division I college hockey as it sits now is through major junior hockey or the USHL. That's not to say the North American Hockey League and BC League and the other Tier 2 leagues won't have college placements. They will. However, it used to be a given. Last year I coached the #1 player in Tier 3 hockey. That's not an opinion. He's the all-time leading scorer, and he set the record for most points in a season. He owns something like 17 different offensive categories in Tier 3 hockey. I could not get, and with my pull or sway, could not get him into a D3 school last year because they're all going to Tier 2 guys. That's the whole groundwork underneath our feet has blown up, and everyone's reacting to it. You ask a college coach today what it's going to be like in 6 months, they don't know. Here's the other thing, is now your clock starts ticking when you're 19 years old. So this is where it does get important, mom and dad, when you're deciding, and we could talk about education in a second, but when you're deciding your kid's in high school, okay, once he graduates and he's 19 years old, his clock for college hockey starts ticking. So if he plays a year a junior when he's 19, now it's a 4-year deal. Okay. Say he plays 2 years as a junior. He plays as an overage as a 20 because he's not good enough maybe to go into college. He only gets 3 years. So how is that going to affect everything? We we think, the guys that sit around the water cooler and talk about it, we think that things are going to get younger. In order to move those kids to college, leagues are going to get younger. So by proxy, it's going to force everyone to stay home. Again, is it going to affect 8U, 10U, 12U? No. But it's going to affect the culture of the game because now you're going to have 14U, 16U, and even 17U, maybe 18U players staying home because they're not jumping into junior, because the colleges aren't picking them, right? So if the culture is you're going to stay home, then it's probably going to trickle down to 15, 14, 13. You watch your little kid, okay? You got an 8U that plays. I could go watch them play right now, and I could probably pick out something they do in their little 2-minute warm-up that they copied from an NHL team, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they slam it on the goalie, and they all gather around, they cheer. That started in the National Hockey League, and no one else did it. Then all of a sudden, the American Hockey League does it. Then Major Junior does it, and college does it. It just trickles all the way down. And then when it trickles all the way down, someone else will grab, they'll make a new one, right? And it all trickles down. But that's just the way the game is that the National Hockey League sort of sets the standards for it, right? The rules are fairly similar. They got some. You want to talk about like rules that came out that's crazy? You can't ice the puck in when you're killing a penalty. It's a delay a game, right? In USA Hockey, that rule was
Yep.
crazy. Now your kid is going to go all the way through youth hockey, never experiencing life without that rule. So it's no different than body contact, like that's another highly debated thing, and they brought in the rules for that stuff, right? But just take the icing thing. So now he turns 14 or 15 or whatever it is, and he's playing junior, and bam, that's a huge strategy. Icing the puck when you're killing a penalty is in the pros. In junior hockey, you have power play breakouts, you have power play setups, you have penalty kill forechecks and back checks and neutral zone wedges and all of these things. Your kid is never going to experience that. So when they brought in that rule, the automatic that rule, coaches now had no more power play breakout strategies or less of them, because players weren't dumping the puck anymore. They were carrying the puck, so there wasn't as much play. You didn't have time to set up behind your net. Right? Now, these are the rules that I love talking about because it's actually on the ice in the game. This rule you're talking about, it's like you're telling kids they can't go play where they want because they're double A. Okay, I see both sides of it. Yeah, they should stay home when they want, but there's exceptions to it. So if USA Hockey would be cool with the exceptions, and it's not because Johnny Rink owner calls USA Hockey and he knows the state rep and says, hey, we need this kid. He's going to be our best kid. That should never be the argument, ever, at youth hockey.
Well, as we're talking about rules, there's one I really, really want to get into with you in a minute here. But before we go past what we were just talking about, you were talking about the clock and how it starts earlier and how that affects things. Excuse me. And I wanted to ask your opinion just real quick, briefly. Now that we're seeing players that are, and again, I'm only 43. Well, I'm 43, and I'm just saying, you're seeing 18 and 19-year-olds be drafted directly into the NHL. So much more now, at least the last 5 years, especially. You look at the Bedards, the Celebrinis, these kids that are coming in and making an impact right away. And obviously, when, like you said, with the NHL, there's win a Stanley Cup, make money. Like, those are the things they do. And the more Stanley Cups you win, the more money you make. Usually, I would assume. Again, I wouldn't know. But do you see that the more that they're taking these younger kids into the NHL earlier, because obviously now a kid that plays from 19 to 38 is going to have more times, they're going to be able to get more out of him than a kid that played from 25 to 38. Do you see that? Are you assuming that that's the trickle down effect? And while they're making these changes and why everything's getting pushed back down, is that how you think it's coming, where it's coming from?
No, I don't actually. And if you actually look at the draft and the numbers of the players that are drafted every year, they're all the same age. It's an 18U draft. You get some players that go through the second round years, but if you look If you look at the amount of NHL players that go into the NHL from the amateur draft this year, it's about the same as it was 20 years ago. It hasn't changed. Everyone thinks it has. They talk about guys like Celebrini and all those guys. There's usually 5 to 6 players in this year's 26 draft that will make the jump right to the NHL. If there's an anomaly year, you might have 9. 9 players out of, 144, there's 7 rounds now, right? It hasn't changed. Since they went from 12 rounds to 7 rounds, it's been the same amount of guys. But the guys that have come in have maybe arguably made better ink back. Celebrini, no one expected that. He did really well.
You know what? I guess
Chile,
I guess now that you say that, I guess that kind of might be. I might be completely wrong there. I think I should have probably looked at that number, but now that you're saying it, maybe it's not the amount of players, but the impact the guys that are making the jump are making so fast.
It's happened in the last 10 years. 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we drafted Steven Stamkos first overall. And usually a first overall pick will make that jump into the NHL unless there's some teams that do it differently and they do it for good reason. We can get into that later, but I digress. With Steven, was he ready? No. Was he strong enough? No. Was he ready? No. But he needed to learn at some point. So what we did, and it cost our first coach that year, Barry Melrose, it cost him his job because he said it. He said the truth because Steven wasn't ready, right? But what we did was, as an organization, I say we, I had nothing to do with it, but we got him a personal coach. Gary Roberts came in and started training him. And when he had days that he was supposed to play game day, we would healthy scratch him because he had leg day or he had a lift day and all that stuff. I think it happened like 2 or 3 times, and the media got all over us. But the reason we did it was to get him more prepared for the playing against men. Because think about how hard it is for an 18-year-old kid to play against, men. But again, back to I guess where I think you're going with this is, there's 8 or 9 players, and let's say this year might be, I like Verhoff. Verhoff went number 9, so let's start there, okay? Well, Verhoff will be the under-over. Let's look at Verhoff in San Jose and see if he cracks their opening day lineup. I think he might, but rarely does a guy outside the top 10 ever make an NHL lineup. They might stick around for, 15 games and go back to junior. But usually it's 4 or 5 guys. And it's something you can always track, right? So when I'm trying to think of some guys. Okay, so when Lemieux came in, he was an instant impact. That was 25 years ago, right? 30 years ago. Okay? Who's made an impact since then that came into the league in their first year? Now, there's been more players. Celebrini's the latest, right? So everyone looks at that and they flocks to that. But if everyone takes a breath and looks at this thing over a 30-year span, and you look at these guys, it's the same amount of guys. It's the same amount of guys that will go back to their junior teams. It's the same amount of guys that will go and maybe go to the American League or go back to Europe or some of these things. And it all depends on the organization. Now, how does that trickle down? It's funny. And you think about college hockey, you got an 8U kid, so you're not there yet, but you're going to get there. You're going to be in those coffee clutches with some of the dads, and they're going to talk about college scholarships, and they're going to bring up the kid who got a college commit at 14 years old. They're going to bring that kid up, right? And they're going to talk about him like he's the second coming, and he's the number one guy, and have another coffee, and blah, blah, blah. And it happens once a decade. Once a decade, you'll see a commit like that. And now with the way the commitments work, every NC2A team gets 26 commits. They're all on full rides, and they can decommit to guys. They're committing to guys later and later. A 14U, they can give him a verbal commit. They can't legally, by their rules, they can't give him a hard commit, a written signed letter of intent, right? Until their sophomore year, they can't do that. So I've seen those scholarships retracted. However, when you talk to the parents, because I run a showcase every year called Global Sports, right? We do a showcase, and you're probably aware of it. Cromie has been with us for 100 years. We do it in Vegas, we do it in Vancouver, and we do it in Chicago every year. We got roughly 1,500 players that go through the program. We bring in easily 50, 60 Division I scouts, about the same as Division III. This summer in Vegas, we had 192 teams altogether from the junior teams up represented. We don't pay them all. We have some on payroll, but they come and scout players, right? And you see the same trends going on from year to year to year to year with these ages. Now, the college guys, if you're already 17, 18, 19 years old, the college guys are looking at the 11 and 12-year-olds. They're not looking at them for next year, but they're making notes, right? Who do they look at? And depending on the hierarchy of the school, Boston College, BU, Minnesota, those guys get their pick of the litter, right? Now, that's changed with NIL. That's changed some things. Penn State's in the game now, right? There's new schools, but look at North Dakota. They got some fantastic recruits, and they're still a small school. They're going to be a top program in the next couple of years, right? Those guys are still, there's talking to those 14-year-old kids. That's all you hear about. But most of their players get committed in their 19th season. You've got to go to major junior and have at least one good campaign, which puts you into your draft year. And now, because of college, they're going to go to college for a year, probably, right? And the neat rule about the NHL draft, you draft a kid in college, you got 4 years to sign him. You draft a kid out of junior, when he turns pro, you got a year. So it's much more advantageous for an NHL team to draft a college player. Does that kind of answer your thing?
Absolutely.
That's why it's getting younger.
Absolutely. And then that was not leading into, but with the one thing that I wanted to go back to after that, because it's yet another thing that, again, it affects us directly, but you mentioned it the other day and it changed my thinking. Because, like, again, I always like to pull back to my 2 full years of hockey knowledge and youth hockey. We were talking about the quarter ice or the half ice, however you want to word it.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard it called multiple different things. And you said something to me that I don't think I ever really thought about, because you were talking about the close quarter puck handling.
Yeah.
Like, to be able to move the puck within close quarters and tight quarters.
Yeah.
And how you see differences between players that play that half ice as opposed to full ice.
Or it's not me. We talked about it. So yeah, that's another thing. We could do the F1 parents like podcast for the next 6 months, and I got enough ammo to sink a battleship. But and that's not to say there aren't good parents out there. But the stuff that they talk about is you just want to stick your face in a fan, because they're not talking about the things that are best for their kid. Anyways, one of these things is full ice hockey. And I know I've sat in rooms with parents that have pulled their kids out of organizations. There's a group here in Seattle that started their own academy. They built their own rink. They've got more money than who knows. And they built their own full NHL sheet at the guy's house. And they started this thing because they wanted their kids to play full ice at 8U and 6U and crap like that. Think of it this way. And it makes complete sense. And it was explained to me. It wasn't my idea, but everyone that's been through the gamut, that's been seen hockey from 5U all the way through, say 16U, everyone can name that one kid when they were little that could skate through everybody. And he could skate through everybody at will, and he could score goals at will, right? You're all thinking of that. Whoever's listening to this podcast is going to think of that one kid. Think of that one kid or two on the ice. And the whole hour is consumed with this kid gets the puck and goes through everybody and scores, and this kid gets it back for his team, and he goes through everybody and scores, and the rest of the guys are chasing around, and if they ever do get the puck on the stick, their mom goes bananas because it's the one time on the ice they get to touch the puck. That's what full ice hockey is for the younger levels. And the lower the level, the more prominent it is, okay? So now you take the game, and now you bring it in half. Or let's go even further and you go third ice, because when they're really young, they go third ice, okay? So now you're putting the same kid, and let's take the best kid on the ice, the most skilled skating guy that can skate through everybody, and let's take the worst kid on the ice, the kid maybe that can't skate, okay? Yeah. You put them on the same ice, you're playing in the same game because you're local and they're not going to leave home at, God forbid, at 6 or whatever, right?
Not yet.
They're playing cross ice hockey, right? Cross ice sports, okay? Now they're in confined areas. Now there's 10 players all in a confined area, and that puck doesn't have to move very far. It's simple math. That puck's going to end up on your stick at some point. and you're going to have to do something with it. You have to think quicker. You have to move quicker. You have to act quicker. So every kid on the ice is learning how to move quicker in the game and make decisions quicker with the puck. The best kid now can't rely on one skill. He used to rely on one skill. What was that? Skating. He could just push the puck. He didn't have to stick handle it. He just pushed the puck from end to end and skate. And then if he had a decent shot, he'd score. If he didn't, he'd miss, and he'd wait till he get the puck again and steal it from the other guy, right? Now, he's got to learn how to stick handle in tight areas, and he's got to dangle through like 14 guys. And there's some guys that can't. But he's not going to do it every time, all the time. Now, the best player on the ice has learned a new skill. He's learned to be crafty. He's learned how to stick handle. He's learned how to toe drag. He's learned how to pass the puck in tight areas. He's learned how to check in tight areas. Now, the worst kid on the ice has learned how to keep his head up. The puck's going to be around him all the time. Now he's got a poke check. He has a chance to get the puck, and if he gets it, he better damn be sure and ready of where to move it, because the best kid's going to be on him again. So it's remember that game, Hungry Hippos? Imagine that with like one puck, or one ball, and everyone's going after the ball, and it's great, and that's, you talk to most pro players, guys that played the game at a high level or coach at a high level at my age that are super old. If we had a chance to play half ice hockey or third ice hockey when we were kids, everyone to a man will tell you it would have far more benefited you, to do it. Because I lived this through my daughter. We had a gal that I'd coached who was phenomenal. She could stick handle in a phone booth. She could dangle. She could go through everybody. Just her skating was unbelievable. And my daughter had just had her fits. She was slow. She wasn't very mobile. She had a good shot, this and that, but she was very immobile when she was young. She was learning to skate. And I said, just wait. She's a defenseman. Just wait. Your skating is going to get better. And she hasn't had to rely on those in-tight moves. And so at 12U, she used to get beat every time one-on-one. My daughter, they just skate by her, right? 13U every time. 14U, maybe she got a stick on it. 15U. By 16U, that player could never get by my daughter one-on-one because my daughter's skill level had gone up. She had learned more skills, right? The skating had got up, and this one still could skate, but the skating level got even. So now what's in your bag of tricks? And every player needs that. And message to the parents. When we scout in the NHL, if you want to, grab a second cup of coffee and stop talking about scholarships in the NHL now for your, 9-year-olds, we can talk about this. We don't care. Most of the guys, we aren't watching what your kid does with the puck. We watch just as much what they're doing when they don't have the puck. Because the average player in the NHL has the puck on his stick for how long during a game? How long do you think? I'll ask you. They did, and this is a study. This is science. They have studied this, videotapes. I was on the committee that did this. We would take every player in the NHL over a 4-year span, how many times the puck touched their stick or they carried it, was on their stick for a game, how long? NHL, and on average, every player, NHL.
I would assume it's got to be under 30 seconds.
Keep going.
Lower than that.
It's less than 2.
Holy shit.
It's less than 2.
But I mean, you think about it, like that's because the puck movement is everything. It's not very much stick, you're not
right.
Everyone, that's the top of the line everywhere. You're not going to stick handle around all of them like you maybe make the one move at the last second to get somewhere. Right. But yeah, it's a lot of puck movement. I mean, that's crazy to me.
So 2 seconds, right? So it's less than 2. It's 1.4, whatever the seconds. It's been so long since I've seen that number. Now you think of the young kids. Okay, it's probably going to be up a little bit. Probably going to be 5 or 6 seconds, maybe 8 seconds a game. 8 seconds a game. So what are you doing the rest of the time, right? Because you think about it, if you have the puck on your stick, you might make a pass, right? Okay, that eats up 2 seconds. You might have the puck on your stick 4 times a game. We used to, when we started looking at the ADM program and that all came to fruition, that was one of the reasons that program was started and your kids are benefiting. They're not going to know anything else, is we used to look at full ice games and full ice practices and see how many times a kid would handle a puck, how long it would be on his stick. And we're realizing that 90% of the kids on the ice aren't touching the puck. How much fun is that for them? That sucks. So let's find a way to get everyone more involved. It's no different than, and we were such idiots in hockey for years. You played soccer when you were a kid, right? When you were a little kid, did they use that huge ball bigger than your head? No, they had a smaller ball. And they had a smaller field. And they had smaller nets. We didn't do that in hockey. We had these little kids going in the net, and we still had those big, like they might as well have been soccer nets, right? That's not teaching them anything. So the game it's got to be scaled down. And as they grow and as they get better, they scale up. And the other thing is that they learn those skills on the pond. Or, if you don't have access and it's not cold enough, then it's stick and puck. It's shinny or whatever you call. What do they call it? Stick and puck. There's another name for it. Open hockey or whatever. And
Rat
all
hockey?
ages. Yeah, all ages just go out there and you pay $20 and you get an hour and they just scrimmage. And there's no rules. You just, if you're out there too long, some old guy like me is going to say, "Hey, kid, get off the ice for 5 seconds. Let me get some wind going." But that's where you learn a lot of your craftiness and stuff is playing against the old guys. But if you think of how long that game is spread out in a full ice, and then I'll wrap that up. I'll wrap this thought up. You think about how big that ice surface is and how long it takes to get back and forth, okay? And think of that on a clock and how long that takes. So how many times a kid touches the puck. Now you take that and you bring it down by 2/3. How much time does your kid handle a puck? How many scoring chances does he get? It's just like junior hockey. Like I laugh at these coaches that they're trying to look at goalies and they have at their tryouts, they do everything's full ice scrimmage. You got 5-on-5, so you get a whole period goes by. Goalie doesn't get a chance. He doesn't get a shot on net. When I do my junior tryouts, or even 16U or 14U, I do cross ice. I do cross ice games. So that goalie, I want to see guys handle the puck in traffic. I want to see guys take the body. I want to see who's intimidated by that. I want to see action. Yeah, we play full ice. Sure we do. And we'll go down to 3-on-3 full ice because I do want to see the guys that can really blast it open and skate. But I also want to see the guys that maybe need help with their skating, but they're incredible in tight areas. And that's how your kid gets better. That's how he gets better, is putting him in those high pressure situations as much as you can. And they love it.
I'm going to tell you right now, I have spent the last 2 years being sure that USA Hockey was dead wrong about that. And for the first time, someone has actually had me. I think you might know more. I think you might be right. I may have been wrong. I can't believe this. I may have been wrong. I'm not ready to say it just yet because, man, I will tell you what, as much as I'm fine with the action, I got to tell you what I can't stand. That blue puck drives me nuts. It's so light and it's so hard to stick handle. Excuse me. I hate that blue puck.
You hate the blue puck.
What you're saying makes sense. I don't know. I think you might know what you're talking about.
Well, it's all scaled down, right? Yeah, like nobody could shoot the puck. You can't raise the puck. When I was a kid, the best kids could raise the puck because they were stronger and bigger, right? They could raise the puck because the puck was like, it took a lot. Okay, so think of it this way. Make your kid go out there with an adult stick that's 6 feet long and adult grip size and make them do that. Same thing. It's the same concept, right? So the sticks are smaller. Why? Because the kid's hands are smaller, right? So now you got a kid with a blue puck, and now a kid that maybe is a little weaker and stuff, but he's got technique. He can raise a puck. So now he's equivalent. He's on an equal basis to other guys. And this isn't a socialist thing. That's not what I am. I am far from it. But I'm saying it gives him an equal opportunity to work on that skill. Because with that puck being as big and heavy as it is, some kids are just too small and they just can't get it off the ground, as good as they are. And so this gives everybody a chance to do it. I can't tell you I know for sure when the right time is to wean them off that puck, but I can tell you it's the right time. Different. I played football when I was a kid growing up in Canada. I played soccer. We had a small ball, then we had a middle ball, footballs. And then look at the Canadian Football League. Look at that thing. It's a friggin' rugby ball. That thing's huge, right? But when you're little, you use those little footballs and stuff. And there's a reason for that. Same with soccer. Again,
I'm gonna tell you right now, I guarantee you there's people on their way. Right now, I bet you they're in their car on their way to work Tuesday morning, hearing me say that I might be okay with half ice, and they're blown away. Because they've seen me lose my mind over hating it. They're shocked right now. I can think of one guy specifically who's on his way to work, who's listening to this, who's probably going, "Holy shit, I can't believe that just happened." But it does. It checks out. And the thing is I'm pretty open about it. Like, I feel like as I watch my son play and I get to play with him, not that I'm any good, he's probably much better than I am at this point. Uh, if I were to say things, handling the puck in tight quarters would be something he definitely needs to work on. Like, and as he's on his third mite season. So he started as, 5 going into 6, and he was on the third mite team, and he's been there now, but he's played 3 mite seasons all full ice. So now clearly, obviously, as he's come along that way, he's grown every year in his game. But yeah, if I were to specifically point that out, I would think that handling the puck in tight quarters is something he definitely would need to work on.
I can tell you,
it checks out. It checks out.
I can tell you all the kids when I was growing up, all the kids at 11 years old that were just phenomenal, great. They'd score at will. None played past midgets, and none played AAA midget. None. And I'm talking absolute phenoms at 10 and 11 years old, and they're good people. Wow. I can say their names. I'm not going to. But then you go and you go to little towns where I grew up in Manitoba. I grew up in the city. We had all the best kids and we won every year. But every small town had a guy that got on the ice because he stayed home and he was the best player on his team and he got on the ice all the time. And every town had a guy play in the NHL, make it to the NHL. And there were all the kids that I played against that there's one, maybe a very rare a town would have 2. They'd have less guys on their team. They'd have 9 guys. And the parents of those kids did not give a whole hootenanny about winning and losing. Yeah, you don't want to lose every game 10-0, nor do you want to win every game 10-0. Nobody gains anything from that. But at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's a marathon. It's a sprint. If your kid, the reason I can say that I had at least a successful career in my mind, I wasn't a career NHL player, but I had a good 15-year pro career, was attrition. Wasn't because I was better than most guys. I outlasted them. I like I told you, I played house when I was 11. I went to the East Coast Hockey League. I wasn't drafted. I had to learn, and I had to learn by fighting my way up. And I'd say everyone says that. No, that's what I did. I had 135 points in junior as a defenseman. I went to the East Coast Hockey League. I think my first year I had 19, right? And I was brought in as a power play defenseman. I couldn't do that, and I realized very quickly that if I didn't hone some other skills, that I was not going to be around for long in that era. Now that era has changed, and that era is gone. But nowadays it's other things, and it's more skill. It's a skill game and skating and stuff like that. But every player has to go through those moments where you've got to figure out what you're going to do. You got one good thing. You do it really well. Your kid does one thing really well. And if you want to help your kid, the best thing you can do right now is give him 2 or 3 other things that he needs to be good at. If you want to be good at this, I had a kid that came to me in junior one time when I was coaching him, and I said, I asked the Western Hockey League team for a kid. I needed a U.S. kid because I was a USA hockey team. Anyways, this kid asked me, he looked me up and he says, "Hey, coach, I understand you're a good fighter. Can you teach me how to fight?" And I said, "Sure, Andes, I'll teach you how to fight. But before we do," I said, "let's work on our cross-unders and crossovers here and just a little bit of our stick handling. Let's work on that. Let's improve that by about 50%. And then I'll show you a few things about scrapping." Well, so he'd do that, and he goes, after like 3-4 weeks, he's like, "Hey, coach, can you show me a few things about scrapping?" "Yeah, I will, but first, you know what? Let's work on your shot release, okay?" Anyways, the long and short story is this guy thought he was going to be a tough guy in junior, which there's no such thing because they don't make it out of junior, right? You can be tough in junior, but you're not going to get the skills. So that kid had 25 goals his 2 last years at junior, and he got a scholarship to AIC. And he the guy ended up with an academic scholarship after he graduated playing hockey in college. He got an academic scholarship to Harvard. But the guy became a skilled player. And he was willing to work on other things. And every kid has to. Watch your kids. And watch your kids a stick and puck and watch what they do. And I'm not saying that you want to be that parent out there with a whistle and making them do all these things. But watch what they do. They typically will grab one thing and they'll do that for like 45 minutes of the hour, right? Try to get them into working on other things. And it's fine. It's a fine line because you don't want to be that dad, right? That pushes
Yeah.
them and does it. But you maybe show them a video of an NHL guy doing stuff. The great thing about today is you go on YouTube and you can find anything, right? You want to find a guy toe dragging a puck or a guy flicking it and batting it out of the air, and that's work on that. You can find a video and say, look, all you do is shoot the puck on the boards all the time, every time you get out there. Why don't you try and do what Celebrini does and try and do that backhand sauce? Oh, cool. Great. Why don't you try and do what Crosby does and tap the puck with your heel and bring it behind your legs? You know, challenge them to do all their things because they're going to need those tools of the trade when they get older.
Well, and again, this brings me into the things that I wanted to finish up with you on. And I know this is going to be a broad, like a really super vague thing, but it kind of delves into what you were just talking about. Our main goal here, and what we've always wanted to do, especially since we started working in the youth hockey organization, is to find people like you, find people that we can use as a resource that we can put out there for families, for parents that are either in it now, coming into it now, or even on a few years already into it, who maybe just don't know the things that they need to do. What you just said is another great one, and obviously, yeah, you don't want to be that parent that's driving them at, because it's supposed to be fun. You got to have fun. But yeah, like you want to get good at it, you have to work at it. Don't just do the one thing over and over again. But what are some of the other pitfalls, some of the other things that you've seen that I'm sure you can go on for hours with terrible parent stories, and
Well, it's not
trust
that
me,
not just parents, but just
I'm sure I if not have already been one or two in the very beginning. I was real close. I wasn't far off. Like I'm if anything, I could know that I'm self-aware and I'm learning on the fly. And I'm very lucky to have this access. And that's what we were trying to do, is get this information out there. So as you're going through these things, one of the ones that I heard, to give you an example of kind of what I'm looking for, everyone I've talked to has said, don't get on this idea that your kids got to go play AAA hockey the very first time they get off, or you get a phone call at 8 years old. They don't need to drive to the next state to go play AAA hockey. They don't need to do it again. And I'm not going to ask you to give me a year. Don't take your kid to AAA till this year. But can you throw some guidelines, some ideas, some stories, some versions of things that you've seen that can, derail a kid, or just ideas that might be able to help families that are navigating this, which is, again, there's no clear cut linear way to get where you want to be,
yeah.
which is, I would hope every person's place where they want to get to is whatever the best place is for their kid.
Well, I'm going to tell you in a nutshell. I have a business now that solely focuses on that. I'm going to plug it, but I'll preface that with something. No, I'm just going to plug it. So, I have an advisory mentoring group, and what we do is we advise and we mentor families. Right? It's Hockey Horizons, hockeyhorizons.com. That's the name of our company. We help parents and players navigate through all of this stuff. Right? Okay. You think I'm trying to sell any of you listening in on this? No, because it's mostly 8U and 12U. I'm not. Because if you call me tomorrow, you go to my website, I've got a blog article that comes out every day, a new article on a different topic of hockey. It's either goalie mitts, fitness kits, nutrition, mental kits, hockey, whatever. All this stuff. My group is comprised of former National Hockey League, Division I college, and major junior players. Those are my advisors. Not nobody slapdicks who have never done anything in the game and want to peddle themselves as knowledgeable people. And, I used to be really humble about it. And I guess I still am, but I get so angry when people listen to the wrong people. And I'm not saying I'm the resident expert on anything. I'm just telling you, I've been around this game. I know a little bit about something. And if I don't, I've got 2 former NHL goaltenders that played 15 years. And if you're a goalie and I don't have the goalie answer, I'm going to hook you up with those guys or a coach or whatever, right? So anyways, I spend the majority of my day, that's what I do now. I educate families on this. I lecture about it all summer, blah, blah, blah. If you call me tomorrow and your kid's not 14 years old, I'll give you free advice. And I'll tell you, don't call me till your kid's a bantam. I don't want I'm not taking your money. I'll give you free advice now. And if you get to that point, and it's not because I want the best kids. There are advisory groups out there, advisors, that only take the top end kids. I got a 16U house goalie. I got house players. Like I don't care. I don't base it on how good you are. I base it on how the quality of your character and the quality of the family, right? And it's getting players to discover their full potential and be the best they can be, wherever that is. If it's going from A to double A to triple A, whatever that is, everything in between. And so, parents, you've got so many good resources to grab the information you don't know. And Scotty Bowman said this, and Scotty Bowman is arguably the greatest hockey mind ever in the history of the game. And he said, I know 1/10,000th of what there is to know about hockey. So if that guy knows 1/10,000th, what do you think I know? And then what do you think you know, right? What do you think you know? So find it.
I don't know shit.
So I don't mean you. I mean, the people listening. But so if you don't know, what do? You go find out, right? You're an investigator. You've done it. If you don't know, you ask questions. But you got to be careful. You got to ask the right questions to the right people, right? And so do you have access to someone like that? It's a rhetorical question. Who is it? Have they played the game before? Have they coached the game before? Or are they just a season ticket holder that likes to throw bananas at the referee because they don't like him? Like who knows? Like where is the quality of the guy coming from? If you don't have that, then you ask someone. Your first person to look to for that knowledge, hopefully, is your coach, right? Your coach hopefully had played somewhere. If he's a volunteer dad and he's just doing his best, okay, you're probably not going to ask him how to do a double regroup on the power play or whatever, right? You're just going to have to find someone to do it. But you can find a lot of stuff online, okay? There's a lot of articles. Like I said, I write, that's what I do all day. I write articles. I put stuff out there to help people navigate because I've owned teams before. You can get caught in money traps and it's an expensive sport. We all know that, right? But that's not the only pitfall that you can run into. Yeah, the worst thing you could ever do is play for a bad coach because that can set you back. That can set you back a whole year. And if the weird thing about this game or life in general and stuff like that, we don't turn the clock back, right? So you got to experience something. Well, you experience a bad year and you have a bad coach and maybe a bad experience as a parent and a player and your son, right, or daughter, okay? You don't get that back. You lose that traction, you lose that upward mobility, and you lose that time. So we're trying to make as few mistakes as we can. We're going to make them, right? We're all going to make them. But how do you navigate through that? So yeah, when you get to be 14, 15, yeah, you do call me. Or you call a group like me and you say, I don't have the time or the resources, or I'm just too lazy and I don't want to do it. I need help. How do I do this? Because there are programs out there. Prime example. I get asked about a certain program and I'll never badmouth the program. I'm not going to do that, but there's a way to do it, right? I've had 7 players go to this program in the past. Not one of the 7 made it to Christmas. They all left because of the billets. The nutrition was horrible. The schooling was awful. The hockey was fantastic. Great coaching, but the billeting and everything else about it sucked. And they sent their kids away. And I told them, and I'll tell you right now, and I tell people at my lectures, if that program, that academy recruits you and you want to retain me or you want me to retain you as a client, I won't take you as a client because I've already seen their track record and lack of performance when it comes to your kid. And I sat on the U.S. National Discipline Committee and I've had to pull kids out of 7 kids living in mobile homes by themselves with no parent supervision, eating top ramen noodle like they're in a third world country, driving to hockey games at 2 a.m. when they should be provided transportation by their team. I've seen the worst of the worst. It's bad. And with Megan's Law, there's creeps out there. Now, USA Hockey has done a phenomenal job of screening and all those kind of things. I didn't grow up in that era, right? It's pretty safe now. But there are creeps out there, right? The people in hockey, it's a small community. We all know who the creeps are and we all know who to stay away from. And parents, just get the best information you can and go with it. Don't sit around the water cooler and get each other ginned up about what you think about something because you don't know. And you might work at Tesla, and I love electric cars and technology and all that crap. And I'll sit there like a fly on the wall, not saying I know anything about anything because I don't. And sometimes it's tough. It's tough for us. It's tough for me to go to my daughter's volleyball. I played volleyball in high school, big deal. I watch her college beach volleyball. I can't have an opinion on that. So I never played it at a high level, right? And that's all. It's just take everything with a grain of salt in perspective and think about in 5 years. Someone said this to me years ago and it stuck with me. In 5 years, is it going to matter? So your kid gets dicked over on a penalty call and he sits in the box and your team loses the championship at, 6U. In 5 years, does it matter? Right? I ask my kids, and I've got to find a new guy because he's about to retire, but I ask my kids whenever I coach, I said, where did Sid Crosby play Bantam? I wait, right? Where did he play Bantam? I know. I said, I know. Do you know? You guys know? No. Well, he played at Shattuck St. Mary, but he's from Canada. Why wouldn't he just play as in junior? Because they wouldn't let him. But it doesn't matter where he played. It just matters. I don't know if they won or not. I couldn't tell you. But he got good coaching. And it kept him playing, right? So he was in a good spot. Nobody remembers where you played. They're not going to remember. Pro guys, college guys, junior guys aren't going to remember where you played when you're 8U, 10U, 12U. So over all else, just find a program where you're going to get to play and you're going to get to practice a lot. And the more you get on the ice, the better. And don't burn out by playing 150 games like we're 70 of them in the summer. And I'm going to generalize here, and it's going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I could give a rat's ass, right? You want bad coaching? Go play in the summer. Go play for those guys that go to those tournaments because they don't get coaching jobs in the winter. You know why? Because they're nut jobs, and that's why. And so they put together their own all-star teams. They handpick these teams so their kid can be on these teams, and they do this, right? How many of those guys are have kids that play? Prime example. Why do it? Take your time, go play baseball, go play soccer. And you know what? I wish a lot more teams did this. They take the ice out. Does your rink take the ice out in the summer?
No.
They leave it in.
Well, if they have at times, but only for a little period of time.
But if they play, but if they play 3-on-3, you're much better off having your son play 3-on-3 cross ice with, all his buddies at home than going, yeah, you want to go to a hockey school? Absolutely. Go learn, get some pros, get a few autographs, learn a few things. But to go to these summer, go to one tournament. But there also needs to be a break. There needs to, and we can get into that a little bit. I know we're running short on time here. But the doctors have said, there are certain muscles, even at 8U, 10U, 12U, your ligaments, your tendons, there's certain tendons and ligaments for skating that you don't break them, but they wear down over time. You're starting to see kids at 14U, 15U getting hip surgeries because they're playing 12 months a year. It's a thing. And the orthopedics, this isn't me. I'm not a doctor. I'm a moron. These are the orthopedics saying these things, right? So, and I get it, guys. It's hard because this is what sucks about this game. You have a great season. Your season's over. And whatever that is, and the national tournament is on, pick a day, April 1st. I'll say it because it's a Fool's Day, right? The next day they have tryouts for next year. How is that fair? Your kid's 8 years old. Between April and September, how much is he going to grow? How fast is he going to grow? How much stronger is he going to get? How much smarter is he going to get? We don't know. So you're picking a kid in April, and some of those kids will progress. Some don't. And others are behind that go way ahead. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter at this age if your kid's playing AA, AAA, whatever, Again, I played house hockey at 11, and hey, I was the captain of the team. That was kind of cool for me, I got to play a ton. Yeah, I was bummed because my buddies were playing AAA and AA, but once the season started and I got on the ice a lot, it didn't seem to matter. Just I didn't see them during practice nights because I had my own thing, and it does. But it's not the end of the world because you gain the confidence you need. And I know parents and NHL players whose parents never let them play AAA because of cost. And I'm not bagging on AAA. It's good, depending on where it is. But there are AA programs in the country. There are some AA programs I used to recruit. My junior teams, 11 of 12 years won the league. A lot of success, right? We did it recruiting AA players for the most part. Palmyra, I think it's called Palmyra in Pennsylvania. They're a double A program. They produce some of the best hockey players in the country. That's one of them. Marietta, Georgia. Who would have thought? He used to get one or two guys out of there every year. Tucson, Arizona. I'd get goalies out of there. Double A guys that would, stop more rubber than a French whore on Friday. Like they you never heard that one?
I love that.
They get 70, 80 shots a game, and now they're junior ready. They're junior tested, so it doesn't matter where you play so long as you play. And goalies out there, goalie parents, don't get caught up in the 3 goalie thing, especially like in junior, they do it because of economics. But if there's a team in youth hockey that's carrying more than 2 goalies, don't walk away or run. Your kid needs to play. And if he's a backup goalie at youth hockey, if it's AAA level and they give him a 60, 40, 70, 30, just have him be up front with you. And your time to ask the questions, parents, is from today until the start of the season. Now, it's not a perfect science because, again, I'm saying because your kid's 8, Walshy, like you're going to be involved, right? But my hope for you is that you're going to teach him to start advocating for himself. And that's what I do with Hockey Horizons. Like I work with junior age kids, bantams and up, right? And they say, well, are you going to call teams for me, for my kid? I said, no. I'm going to teach your kid how to reach out to teams and advocate for himself and send emails and craft a social media profile, all these different things. That's what I do. I work with the players. But that, as parents, that's the best thing we can do for our kids. We say I think it's harder for kids nowadays than before when we were growing up. It's so much harder today because there's all this junk out there. But in a lot of ways, it's a lot simpler because there's so many kids that are just soft.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
2 things on what you were just talking about. The first one that you just mentioned that I wanted to give a shout out to someone. I would assume he didn't get it from you. If it is, it'd be a small world. Effing Terrible Sports is really lucky to sponsor a men's and a women's team in the ACHA showcase here every year. And one of our friends of the program that plays for Brother Ice Hockey, who has played for us 2 years now, is one of our guys, Jake Beck. And he was at the ACHA showcase this year and was out meeting coaches and meeting scouts. And one of the guys that was there walking around with us was Steve. And it was, he had ordered his own business cards. He had created his own highlight video.
Yeah.
He had made a resume of what he had done. He was doing the things that you were just talking about, which I thought was next level on his part. He was aggressive about it. He was being, not in a manner of being over the top, but he was taking control. And I loved that. I love that for him. And to hear you say that, I wouldn't be shocked. Like if you end up hearing his name one day, or if he ever reaches out, or if I get a chance to talk to him to tell him to do it. But as I go back, because obviously I know you through the people that we know. So I could, if I had something, I'm lucky enough, I could call you or text you now, or ask Steve if it's okay to do that, to get my information. But what should parents be looking for? Because again, not a utopia, not a perfect world. You got assholes out there. And a perfect example, in the short time that I've been involved, I ran across a family that I knew, not in our organization, and their son was just about to turn 8.
Okay.
And clearly the best player on his team the year prior. Not even close.
Okay.
Dominant player. Really, really good player. And he had played in a camp that was put on by a AAA program, and they wanted this kid to come play there. Oh yeah, we want you to come play in the fall here. And the mom and the dad, I was standing there with them, where they're like, well, we don't know what we're going to do, because he really likes it here. He likes it with the team that he's on, but these coaches are saying, like, you don't want to take a chance. Like, what if there's no spot for him next year? What if we don't have a spot for him next year? What if you say no now, and then we can't take him next year? I would hate for him to miss out on this. So there are guys out there that are used car salesmen, whether we don't want to admit it or not,
there's too many
that are trying to pad their stats and put a little money in their wallet. So if you were to give it the way to background check hockey information, like, where would you go other than obviously now Hockey Horizons? Like, we got that now. We'll put that out on our website and all our social media, so they can just go. We can start pushing that. But what are the ways these parents can get good information from quality people?
Well, as I said, a lot of it comes from asking people that they trust. And, you know, when it comes to advice in life, if you're a religious person, you go to your pastor or priest or whatever, right? If you're maybe you go to your teacher, there are pillars in the community. Just like the community, hockey has some pillars. And it takes the three simple words dictate or is what I teach to anybody. Parents, players, whatever. Do your homework. Those three things. Just do your homework. Do your homework on a program. The internet is fantastic. You know what? You want to buy stuff on Google? What do? You read, I don't know what you do. I read reviews. And if I read that 20 people said that the handle off the thing broke before they got it home, blah, 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 I'm probably not going to buy that item, right? So it's a lot of work. And I tell parents, I said, when it comes to navigating and picking, you know, I'm more focused on the junior hockey and above. But when it comes to picking a program, you got to do your homework, and it sucks. It takes extra time, and you got to ask tough questions, especially when you got the young kids, right? You got to ask them, well, can I speak to your coach? What experience does he have? Does he have a track record of moving players along? You know, not at you, whatever. Or you know, at the younger kids, do his players improve at the end of the year? How many players have quit from year to year? You know, there's a lot of things that we look at as scouts. As we have access to fancy scouting software, et cetera. But I'll look at a player's body of work on elite prospects, and I'll see in 6 years the guy played for 9 teams. That's a huge red flag. Now, if that kid had been advancing every year to new teams because he was good, that's a story. That's a great story. But more times than not, it's not. There's a problem there, right? And remember this, guys, because it is a reality that coaches, I said this, someone said it to me, and I used it on a few parents. Remember, you guys are trying out too. So if you're a parent that just oversteps your bounds, I talk. Most coaches say they have their parent meetings. They say, "Don't talk to me." I'm not that guy. I'm like, talk to me, sure, yeah. Don't talk to me about your kid. You can talk to me about an instance in a game and a situation, or you want to learn something about it. All game. But if it comes to your kid's ice time and stuff, your kid can talk to me anytime he wants. And if you want to be in the room, you're more than welcome to be in the room. But they've got to own that, and they've got to come with that, right?
And that's something that I have to tiptoe as a person in the way that I am, that, you know, I want to be involved. And I mean, I think I've never once been that guy that questioned where my kid played or how he played or how much he played. I've never been that guy, but I'm the person that sometimes I've had people be like, "Man, aren't you a little too involved in 8U hockey? Like, don't you care a little too much?" And I go, I don't know. I match the effort my kid puts in. So like, yeah, like I'm the guy that went out. I'll never forget it. The very first time as a 6-year-old, he walked out of the locker room and skated out onto the ice at our home game. And I turn to someone and I go, they don't have like a show? Like we don't do nothing? Like we just go out there and skate in a circle? And they're like, yeah. I go, fuck that. I go, where's the fire cannons? Immediately got on the internet, bought me some fire cannons, got me a smoke machine, got me the music, got my laptop all set up. Now we got smoke machines and fire cannons. And the minute we did it, every other team was there was like, whoa, like you think you maybe want to do that for our kids? Fuck yes, I do. Of course I do. We're all here. Let's have as much fun as we can. Let's make this as much fun as we can. So I want to be that involved, but I feel like
dude,
I can honestly
that
say,
is great. I'm going to cut you off because that most people will say, "Well, geez, you're way too involved. That's nuts." We bought a mascot. Like, great. Who cares? It's awesome. If it enhances the kids' experience, yeah, I think it should be about the hockey. But at the same time, you guys are doing that. That's great. And you know what? The way I look at it as a coach, it's less time you're spending in my ear. So I love it. Right?
I don't know, man. I think you got to know at this point, I got plenty of time. I could be in their ear later. I'll call them in the middle of the night. But no, I think the coaches that I've had so far would say, I've never once questioned how they coach. That's not my job. I don't have that in my bag. But when you come to me, like I will go to coaches and get in their ear for little things. I'm in a different position. We have these opportunities. Like I said, for last year, My son was playing with some older kids. We lost a bunch of kids last year to aging out. We were really sad. We loved those families. So when we had our last tournament with that crew, I went to the coach and I went to the team and I go, listen, I'd love to buy the whole team. We would love the effing terrible would love to buy the whole team custom green jerseys for this last St. Patty's Day tournament. And we were able to take the last tournament we were at as a team in St. Patrick's Day. The boys go out to get to do their stretching. They come into the locker room and brand new Kelly green jerseys are hanging in the locker room waiting for them.
Those kids
That's
won't
the
forget
kind of
that.
stuff I want to be involved
Yeah,
for.
and that's great. For sure.
And the thing is I've been lucky. I've had some great, the coaches that we've had have been amazing. And the one thing I will say is I know you talked about some of the dads, but what I found right now, the dads that have been the assistant coaches on these teams have been unbelievable and phenomenal. We've been so lucky. The hockey family we've built in a short period of time is what's made me love this so much and want to do anything I can to make it better.
Oh yeah.
And that's all we really want to do. And obviously this is what you want to do. This is kind of what we were shooting to get you on to do this, because that's what you're trying to do, is just get the information out there to let people find out the right way to do things, to grow everything better, and to get where they want to go, which is what everyone wants to do. You want to, and I mean, if it's not my kid or if it's someone else's kid, or hey, if there's a kid that plays with my son, and because we decided to put fire cannons up and he skated through it and we got to take a cool picture of it, and he becomes the next Patrick Kane, and I get to watch that kid play and go, I shot fucking fire cannons off for that kid when he was 7.
Yeah.
I did that, like, I hope I get to do that. That's
Right.
all I need. I'm good there.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it should be for. It doesn't have to be just fun for the kids. It's got to be fun for everyone too. If a kid's good, he's going to make it. If he's not good, he's not going to make it. Whatever make it means. Some kids making it is just getting to college. I had parents that were ecstatic that their kids, and I said, look, your kid's going to be probably a college ACHA player. They were ecstatic that he overshot his coverage, and that was great. He got to continue to play hockey in college, and I always say ideal in the land of broken dreams, because I always have to put people's reality, or where they want to be and where they're really going to be, at some point that meets. And I'm sort of the one that kind of gets them to not accept. I don't think anyone should ever accept where they are, but realize where they're. It's a hard pill to swallow. I'll never forget the day I knew I wasn't going to be a full-time NHL player. I was on call-up with Detroit. I was skating in practice, and I was on a line with a couple guys, and they were good players, but they were second, third line guys. Anyways, I'm just on their line for practice, and I'm skating as hard as I can, and I'm shoveling coal like it's the last train in the station, and they've got it on cruise control, and they're still ahead of me. And I realized I'm probably not going to crack a lineup anytime soon, but I still kept playing. I kept playing in the minors and slugged it out. But everyone has that moment, right, where your reality is going to sink in. It doesn't matter. This is one of the few games that we play that you play it when you're 6 years old and you play it when you're 60. I played pickup hockey with a guy in LA who was 74 years old, and we did buzzer hockey. So you got, I think it was 90 seconds, and he had the A group and the B group, and he was in the B group, but he's still in the same locker room. We're still chugging a pop after the game, it's just a fantastic game. So the longer you can hang on and stay in it, and there's jobs for guys. I have guys that I've coached. I'm just as proud of the jobs they do. They work in marketing, they work in sales, they're working, in management of hockey teams too. When it gave up, some guys give it up. They start coaching at an early age. There's so many great opportunities in the game, and there's so many good people in the game. So, do I want to do this? No, I don't. I want to go fishing, dude. But I think the owner of Global talked me into starting Horizons, and I fought it kicking and screaming because there's so many dopes that do it. And I realized that there's so many families that need help, and I don't want to see them go down a path that other families have gone down, because I just feel for the kids, because it's such a game. Hockey doesn't create fans, it creates addicts. You give kids their gear. I was hoping my kids would play the tuba and trumpet and not play hockey because I spent my life in it. And my one daughter, when she was young, as soon as she got that equipment, she was hooked. You know, I'm not saying she's any good. She wasn't, but she'd watch Miracle. She'd rent it, and she wouldn't watch the movie unless she put all of her equipment on.
I love it.
She was nuts, but that's what
love it.
what this game is, right? So play it as long as you can. There's so many good things, but the long and short of it is, I guess the long of it is, but find people that you can trust, right? Crow's a guy. Crow and his family, they're family friends of mine. I love those guys, Steve Cromie and Colin. And Colin went out to BC. I helped facilitate that for him. I mean, that was something that was easy to do. I know Colin's path. I've done, I've made T-shirts for him for his comedy stuff. Like I've known the kid. He's like a son to me, right? And Brandon, his other son. I talk to him all the time. Well, not all the time, but I talk to him. That's what this game is about. And Crow was a guy I felt like in Chicago I could trust, and I value his opinion, and he never would steer me wrong. You just got to find guys like that. And I say to anyone that comes and wants wants me to work with them, you know what? I may not be the right fit for you. I'm an acquired taste because some people can't take the sandpaper on my words sometimes. They're a little gruff, right? I'm being nice tonight, but I'll tell you how I think it should be, and I don't want to waste time. I actually talk more tonight than I have in months. But yeah, like I'm going to go have a cigar when we're done. My buddy's birthday's here. It ends in 15 minutes, but I got to go smoke a cigar with him. And I'm going to sit and listen. But when it comes to those things, I say it again, is I think it's so important, parents, that you guys get good information, get quality information, and don't take shortcuts, because there are no shortcuts in this game. Take the long road. It's always the best road to take, and just be around people you want to be with. If your kid's good enough, we'll be there. We'll be there for them. We'll find them, right? All right.
So as we do get you closer to that cigar, I hope that you will come back again, and I would love to hear a more rough version of it, of you, because I love that. So before we go on to the things that I want to do, I have one last question. Well, actually, I have two last questions that are a little more lighthearted. But before I get there, I'm going to need one more time. The more rubber, the goalie comment, the more rubber than a what now? You got to do that one more time. I've never heard this. I need to hear it.
The thing is he saw more rubber than a French four on Friday.
Okay. Because there's a chance maybe we could I might have to throw that on the back of a T-shirt somewhere, and everything that it makes, it's going to have to go to you guys or a charity that you want or something. Because I fucking love that. I've never heard that, and I mean, again, all 2 years of my hockey background, I haven't heard that one yet, so that's my new favorite. That's a slam dunk.
Yeah,
for
you
me.
Say that about a goalie. Here's another goalie joke. I had this goalie. He had a rough night, and he was just down and out, and he let in 11 goals that night, and he was actually suicidal. And he, after the game, ran out in front of a train, and
holy shit.
Yeah. But he lived. You know why? Went between his legs.
You fucking got me. I'm over here for a moment. I had to put my smile away, like, oh, you fucking caught me.
You tissue out. You're ready to cry.
Oh my God. Here we go. I was about ready to do a charity for the kid.
Yeah.
All right. So that we're done with that. They'll knock out the two things. I have one NHL question that's more generic, and I just want your overall input on it.
Okay.
It just came out recently, and we've been sharing a bunch of the videos of it. Carolina Hurricanes obviously win the Stanley Cup this year. The owner decides to put himself and his whole family on the cup first.
Yep.
Preferences, feelings, anything?
One word? Horseshit.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Horseshit.
Fucking ridiculous.
There's a trainer.
Now, I don't know if you.
There's a trainer that's been with those guys since the Hartford Whaler days. Like, I'm sure Mr. Dundon's a good guy, and I'm sure he just effed up, right? He made a huge mistake, though, because there are people that spent their lives in the game trying to do that, not just writing checks. And I get it. That's an important thing, and it's needed too. But come on, man. Come on. Like, there are people, like, if that equipment manager didn't get on the cup, that is ridiculous. But I'll go back to my original
I couldn't agree more. There's definitely someone more deserving.
Yeah.
So there we go. I'm glad we got that out of the way. And then we finish every single one of our podcasts with this. And before, I let you do this this will be the last thing we finish on, because I'll let you think about it for a second. We always finish asking everyone, what is something Can be hockey, it could be just life. Something that's fucking terrible to you. Something that's effing terrible. Like, for example, me being sarcastic about one of them that I joke a lot about is when you go to squirt the ketchup or the mustard on your hot dog and all the water comes out and makes your bun all fucking soggy. I hate that. Or when people are walking across the parking lot and they don't move their arms fast and give you like
The
at
fake
least they're
run.
attempting to try and run.
The fake
So I
run.
need something from you that's effing terrible. So take a second to think
Oh,
about
I
it.
don't
while
need. I don't need it. I didn't
Okay.
need a nanosecond. But the fake run is probably in my top 5. Either get off your ass and run, and actually run. Don't give it this fake like, hey, look, I look like I'm moving. I got you. No, it's going to the same drive-through every goddamn morning for a cup of coffee and getting your order wrong. Like, what do you can't get the order. I order the same thing every day. You recognize my car. You have cameras, and I get up to the front and you mess up the order. And by then I'm already gone. So now that is the number one thing, because your day has to start up with a good cup of Joe, right? And if they,
I got to tell you, I think they don't. If I'm not a big fan for raising all the minimum wages for everything. I think it's got to be a case by case. You fuck up someone's morning coffee, you could fuck up a lot.
hey, dude,
Like you could end the whole world.
it's $25 an hour in Washington. They get paid enough to sling coffee.
$25 and oh yeah, you can't fuck that coffee.
That's minimum
I
wage.
would drive my car right through the window.
That's minimum wage in
I would drive-
Washington State. $25 an hour.
I would drive my car through the fucking window with my and that would be my argument.
But that is
as I'm handcuffed in front of the judge.
that is my thing.
hands behind my back. I'm like, Your Honor, he's getting $25 an hour and he fucked up my order 3 times out of 5. Like, and then the judge is like, case dismissed. You're out of here, brother. You get to drive your car through anything if someone fucks your order up that much.
Yeah, that's my effing one. As a coach, it's forwards who shoot the puck from the blue line into a defense, or a defenseman that shoot it into a forward shin pads at the blue line. Big pet peeve of mine.
All right.
But
I'll take that too, because we've
coffee
also
is my
heard
currency. My kids are late for practice. They owe me a cup of coffee. They swear in the locker room, a cup of coffee. They can swear on the ice. I don't care about that. But in the locker room, we just have a couple codes, rules, right, like that, right? If they're under 18, because of the law, then their parents buy me a cup of coffee. And if they don't, I sit their kid. And I'm like, you told me that's on you. You guys all sign it. That's my currency. I'm not going to charge you. I'm not going to fine you. The kids get fined. It's a cup of coffee. And the same thing with free advice. So anyone that calls me Hockey Horizons, you guys call me. You're not 14 years old yet. You're not ready to write the big money, right? I'm kidding. But you're not ready for that, and you want free advice. Well, it's not exactly free. You can send me a cup of coffee. But
what's
I'm happy to
the
do it.
coffee distributor that you're out there? Who are you rocking with out there? About you?
I'm a Pete's guy. I like Pete's. You know, Starbucks is fine. I mean, I'm a little down on the. Okay, part 2 of my what effing bugs me. Not only do they screw up your order, you got to go there and you got to see them wearing. Okay, they got green and blue hair and they got all kinds of different shirts with different political causes. I want a cup of coffee. I don't need a super extra decaf, half calf latte with whatever. I want a black coffee. That's all I want. I don't need what you identify as, and I don't need like what the political mood is of the day. I want a cup of coffee and I want to move on. And I wish you
Are
well.
you telling me they mess up a black coffee?
Pretty much.
Get the fuck out of
They
here.
get the wrong drip. I want the same drip every day. So
Oh my God.
And it's Americano, so they put hot water.
I can't handle it.
Yeah,
I can't. This is why I don't know that I can be out in public. This is why I'll never be in charge of shit, because when I get in charge of shit, I just want to throw everything.
Yeah.
But before we say goodbye and finish up for the last night, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. This podcast is being recorded on Monday, July 13th, to be posted tonight on all of our social media, Effing Terrible Sports on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and then it will be under the Effing Terrible Podcast, wherever you download your podcasts. And if you're available, we will be out this weekend at an unbelievable event I'm very happy to be a part of again this year. We will be out with the Chicago Warriors. For anyone who doesn't know, that is the Chicago hockey team that is made up of nothing but disabled veterans who have a disability of some percentage or not. Is their fundraising tournament this weekend, Saturday, July 18th at Glenview Community Ice Center. We are proud sponsors. We'd love to be there. I'll be doing trivia. We'll be giving a lot of stuff away. We'll be buying merch. There's live music. an unbelievable event. We have some of our favorite guys. I know everyone's kind of seen our photos from our previous charity event, which was 2 weeks ago for cancer, our St. Baldrick's, where we had our favorite guy Ducks out there, who is part of the Warriors. We'll have all the Warriors guys out there. Please come out to Glenview this weekend, Saturday, July 18th. Puck drops at 12:30, goes until 7. Live music, food, everything. Come support the Chicago Warriors. Well, sir, this was everything I hoped it would be. I have a new phrase for my favorite T-shirt. This is all I could have ever hoped it would be.
Well, good. We'll have to do this again. I had a blast, man. I had a blast.
I'm happy to. So we'll just have to make sure next time we got to do it in person. We got to find a place to. I don't know if I'm coming out there. If they can't get the coffee right, we might have to meet in the middle.
You can come to
So
Cabo.
I can't be coming out there.
I have a
For
gazebo.
everybody out there, if you do have the opportunity, or if you're in the need, or you're struggling, or you need something where you're looking to get some information, you now have something to look into for some information. You can go to hockeyhorizons.com and you can get the information you need so that you can make sure that you're getting everything you need to know and get all the information from someone with a background like Mike Butters, who can clearly steer you in the right direction and put you where you need to go, wherever that is. And I think what I loved about that was this is not bring me the best of the best. This is everybody who needs the help, over that age, that where they're ready to go. You're trying to get them where they can do their best, where they're at the maximizing their career. I think that's awesome, sir. So, all right, again, Mike, thank you so much for everything, and we'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure, man. We'll see you. We'll see you on the other side.